So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the RGM Experience podcast with me, Carl Maloney, a podcast where we delve into the grassroots music industry and beyond and find interesting people within it. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I've got an amazing guest for you, Freya Beer. Hi, mate.
Hiya, how are you?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Fine, thank you. We catch you mid-tour on this big long tour that you're on at the minute, so I appreciate your time. And
Yeah,
I
of
believe
course.
is it your day off today?
Yeah, I had a couple of days off, but tomorrow starts up again
Yeah.
and then have a break Friday, Saturday, and then like the big one begins
Yeah.
Sunday. So like all the northern dates begin and we have like a van and a tour manager. It's
Ah,
more full on. So yeah.
yeah. So, do you ever get like a day off while you're on tour? Really?
I mean, with this tour, because obviously there's so many dates, like we didn't do it like constantly, like day after day, which is good because everyone sort of needs that break.
Yeah.
Whereas the tour I did a couple years ago, it was like full on, like 10 dates in a row.
Yeah.
Um, so like the first few dates of this tour, there's been like good breaks in between. Whereas, like I said, from this Sunday, Milton Keynes, that's like more of the bigger one where it's full on. It's like day after day. And I think that we have like one break in between.
Well, we really appreciate you joining us today for the podcast and having a chat and get to know you a little bit. We have covered you a few times, caught a few live gigs on RGM before in the past over the years. So your name's always been out there, plugging away, doing
Yeah.
grafting, doing your thing out on tour and getting the Freya Beer name out there to the world. How has it been to you as an artist, playing the game and being part of the industry and just trying to expand the talent that you've got to new people all the time, I suppose, is the aim, isn't it?
Well, it like being honest, it never gets boring.
Mm. Yeah,
It gets frustrating,
yeah,
but I think you need that element, like in any type of sort of business, to keep that like fire in your belly, so to speak, to keep going. But like, because I've been doing my music since I don't know, since I was like 10, and
yeah,
I started to perform live when I was about 17, 16, 17. So I've always been Freya Beer. So like I sort of don't think about it. I just do it because it's
yeah.
just part of my life, you know? And it's more the later years, it's like, okay, how can I make this my, career? I want to be taken seriously in this industry. Um, but no, it's been great. Like honestly, like I've had so many incredible opportunities over the years. But for me, like I'm still climbing that ladder. I haven't got to the point where I want to be yet. But that's good because you always need like a goal
Yeah.
to keep going, to keep that interest.
So you started when you were 10 then? Little Freya Beer, 10 years old. Talk me through what your life was like around you as a kid, finding your
Uh,
way and finding out that you've got these talents.
well, like my parents don't play instruments, but growing up, I always had a lot of music in the house, like all different types of genres. And like even my grandparents, they're into like country music, and that sort of was like if impacted me a lot. I loved country music, I still do. So when I first started, I wanted to be a country like music star. So like Dolly Parton and Johnny Cash. I think Ring of Fire was the first song which I learned on the guitar when I was, I don't know, again, like 10 or something. Um, so yeah, like I've always been exposed to like so many different genres. And like I've been through different phases just growing up. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be like country. And then when I was a teenager, I discovered the grunge movement and Nirvana and was like Hole and Bikini Kill, and I wanted to be more like punk. Whereas like now I've sort of found what's the word? Like my ground, is that the word?
Mm.
Like I sort of know what I want to be like more clearly now. And it's more like alternative rock. But also I enjoy like having a bit of like a pop element because I want to enjoy like my stage performance as well. Like I've been saying to my band, I want to move more on stage because I
Okay.
can move.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so that's sort of been my journey in terms of different
Yeah.
discoveries.
So are you finding it easier to move as the venues gradually get bigger then as you keep doing this and finding new people? Is it nicer to have a little bit more space now and then to move about?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah. But nothing beats like a good old like grassroots venue. You
Yeah.
know, like the Joiners, like because I went to university at Solent,
Mm.
and that was sort of where I started properly performing live. So I had the opportunity to like support bands at the Joiners or their like most recent newer venue called the Heartbreakers. So, and like the people there, they're always so supportive. So yeah, like the venues have gotten bigger, but also I do still play like grassroots venues, which I love because it's just more of like a heartwarming aspect to that for me.
Oh, okay. And where is home for you? Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Ealing and I lived here because I moved back to Ealing, full circle.
Yeah.
Um, so I lived here until I was about 7, and then I moved to Dorset and had most of my childhood in Dorset, which was really nice because obviously Dorset is very what's the word? It's very pretty and like the beaches and stuff. But musically, as I got older, there's nothing there. Like
Yeah.
as much as I love, the scenery, I had to find a city which has like an energy of young people and bands and artists and creativity. And for me, that began in Southampton through my uni.
Mm.
Um, and then in the later years, I moved back to London, and obviously the massive pond of loads of bands and artists here. You kind of like when you first like realize that you're just
Yeah.
it's crazy how much music there is,
Yeah.
especially like new bands and artists, which is good, but it's also like, oh my God, like how am I gonna, you know,
Yeah.
stand out?
Yeah. So
But it's all
nothing
part.
nothing much going on in Dorset at all then.
Not really, no.
Oh, that's
Musically, no.
musically, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. So yeah, I can sympathize with that a little bit. Just moving to Manchester in the last 5 years and just
Oh, right, yeah.
you feel like you're missing out because there's so much
Mm,
going on that you feel like, oh, there's that going on over there. You can't physically do everything. You can't get to everything that you want, and you do feel like you're missing out a lot in
yeah.
cultural cities like London and Manchester and that kind of stuff. It can be. I appreciate it. Might feel a bit intimidating trying to make your own waves into that kind of scene. I suppose. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, at first it's intimidating when especially if you don't know anyone.
Yeah.
But naturally, as you as you gig more around the area, you get to know people and sort of find your crowd, and it's definitely less intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah. So country started off with country. So were you doing were you performing country songs originally, or was that just the kind of music you're into first?
It was more the music I was into first. Like, I've never really performed to a crowd like country music. I would love to. Maybe like in my later years, I'll have a country album. Like, definitely open to that. But it was more like the writing aspect of it. I enjoyed sort of writing like a country-esque style song. When I was about 13, 14, I did like a bunch of demos in Dorset as well. And it was like Dolly Parton songs and Johnny Cash. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were you classed as? And I classed myself as one of these from at school. Were you classed as one of those musical weirdos over there? How did you fit in with school and that kind of stuff as being a creative person?
Well, honestly, I didn't fit in at all. Like school, I was absolutely rubbish at school. I'm not academic, but like it's like I can't at school I was rubbish at like maths and I really struggled. And but at the time, like you don't realize like this isn't forever. In the moment, you're just like, I'm so like rubbish at this. And it's really like it puts you down.
Yeah.
But as you grow up, you realize you have these other skills which people might not, like you either get an academic person or you get a creative person. I don't think there's someone who has both of those aspects. And yeah, I don't know. It's like now and then, like I just think, at school, they really didn't think much of me. Whereas like it's kind of funny now, as much as I've achieved and like, it's that what's the word? That fire you have to keep going, not to prove these people wrong. I don't really care about these people anymore. But it's just like when you think back, it's just like you thought nothing of me. Whereas like now I'm playing, now I played the Palladium and
Yeah.
da da da, and next year I'm playing a bloody arena with my like hero. So um yeah, I mean at school it was very difficult, but you just realize like maybe you had to go through that to become who you are today. Because if it was easy at school, I don't know, I feel like you would still have that mentality of expecting things just to fall into your palm, And growing up, even my parents, they've always been very supportive, but they're very like hardworking as well. And it was very like open-minded. So if we wanted to be something, like I had a moment where I did acting lessons because as well as music, I love film. And they were fully supportive of that. If I wanted to become an actor, they would just be like, okay, do it. Like, but work hard for it and you will get
Yeah.
there. So yeah,
Yeah. And
it's a paid off.
did that experience come from like the teachers or the kids around you at school? Or was it just how it was in them days?
What just how I felt about
Yeah,
school.
just feeling like, it just wasn't for you kind of thing, that type of, you know, math.
Yeah, it was both. I mean, like the kids, you like know how kids can be. They can be horrible. It's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
Um, and but even teachers, I remember like I had a parents' evening once with my science teacher, and he goes to my mum, "Yeah, I feel like Freya's like being sucked into the table."
Mm.
So it's just like, what? You're supposed to like be supportive or like help me, develop or evolve, not like literally shut me down. So I don't know, yeah. I just
It
laugh
does,
about it now.
yeah, it does feel more difficult for creative people just going through the whole educational system, doesn't it? Feels like
Yeah.
it's so weighted one way to for the syllabus and whatever it is these days, what they teach people. It's just so focused on science and maths and that kind of stuff. Where and they're always the first to get rid of the creative stuff, aren't they, out of schools, and take money away from that towards those things as well. It feels like.
Well, yeah, yeah. But it's like I'm saying, not every kid is academic. So
No.
like them taking away like drama lessons or, art lessons, like it really like it's really bad. You should have that element at school just to, you know, yes, follow the syllabus of maths and English, but also like find your own creativity through art or like drama, music. Yeah, I don't know. It's quite sad because I feel like it's gotten a lot worse, especially now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so leaving the country things behind, start to get into the more grungy scene. Nirvana, you mentioned earlier. What
Yeah.
how did that manifest itself for you personally, and finding a new genre of music that you just got well into?
How did it? Sorry.
Yeah, how did it manifest? How did it
Right.
how did it happen?
Um, it just happened through me just exploring different music, like on YouTube, or
Right.
just like coming across like my dad's like record collection. Um, like I've always been the type of person to do like my homework, so to speak, in terms of like music. So I love sort of researching and watching different documentaries of different scenes through the decades. Um, so yeah, I just love like looking into, say, for example, one of my like inspirations is Patti Smith. So I looked at Patti Smith and who she took inspiration from, like musically and like through her writing as well. Like I just love sort of just research really. So and that's how I just discovered different genres. And I had a moment where well, I still have that moment. I love like 60s French music, like Serge Gainsbourg and uh Jean-Claude Vanier, I think his name is. Um, yeah, I just love doing research, ironically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So one thing that's always struck me is how you've combined more poppier tunes sometimes with with different type of like more of a grungy gothy type aesthetic, if you get me.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've obviously it's something you've thought about, but how does that manifest itself? What's inside you to create all these different images and types of music yourself personally as an artist?
What do you mean my songs,
Yeah,
the
songs.
songs I've
So,
written, or
yeah, it's the songs that your own personal songs. So your image is quite, it looks just from the outside looking in that a lot of thought goes into producing, just amazing imagery that goes along with the music. Um,
right, right.
so like a more gothicy type of look or a grungy look with the odd, poppy type of music and song that you bring out every now and again. That kind of thing just intrigues me.
Again, like in terms of like imagery, I'm big on visuals. I love a good color palette, especially like when it comes to like films and stuff. Like I used to research, I don't know if this is sad, but I used to research like different films and like their color palettes because I used to
Right.
that what still inspires me
Yeah.
because I don't know why, but I just I'm really inspired by like images. When I first started writing like properly in my head, uh I would use painting. So I grew up a lot with like the pre-Raphaelites from my mum and dad because they loved art.
Yeah.
So I would find a painting and I would look at like the backstory of the painting, and it's usually Greek mythology. So I would develop like something like imagery or yeah, writing through that type of medium. So I think in terms of my like music, again, I think it's just a mixture of different like um just different genres I've gone through the years and just picking out bits I like in terms of inspiration.
Do you have
Does
a lot
that
of
answer your
different
question?
types of do you have a lot of different types of mindsets then? So you might be in a certain mindset and you might create a certain thing a certain way, or in a different mindset when you're creating to produce something different. Um, how I'm just trying to word it this question really. So it's like mechanically, how do you create? What's the best way for you to create things?
Usually the best way to create, say, well, like my imagery would be through visual boards. Like I said, I collect like different images, put them together, and that usually sparks something. Whereas if it comes to music, um, music, it's kind of different each way. Like, because on my phone, I have like a note which is just full of different words.
Hmm.
And again, visuals, like if I see a word and I like it, it sort of immediately sparks something. So if I have, I don't know, like poison or like or porcelain, one of my poems is called porcelain. Like I adapt to that and like I think of like a porcelain doll. Um, I don't know, my mindset changes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
That's what makes it interesting.
yeah, yeah. So there's not really a set thing. You haven't got a certain desk that you sit down to and think, right, I'm going to write something here. It feels like you have
No,
a different mindset with music than art and the visionary side of it, and how you project and so I'm trying to word this a little bit better. I've just seen loads of stuff on your socials where it's quite
mm,
really iconic the artwork that you use, uh,
right,
and I'm trying to find the connection between the music and the artwork sometimes, and I'm just trying to work it out.
right, yeah, yeah. Like
Am I looking into something
I,
that's not there? Because I do that sometimes, you know.
for me, the thing is not to overthink it because if I
Yes.
overthink it, nothing's gonna happen.
Right.
So I think I just go with the flow. And
Yeah.
like I get where you're coming from about how it links, but I think it in my head it just sort of it just falls into
Just
place. If it goes visually, it will go musically.
I think I'm just overthinking it myself, Freya, to be honest. You can overthink it. As an overthinker myself, it's a nightmare.
Yeah,
Just
I
have it
get you. Yeah.
happen. So growing up, you find these new styles of music. How old are you when you started to really go for it and make that decision to to be this artist? How old were you when? What stage in your life did you get to there?
I was about 14
Wow.
because that's when made my first demos and they were country songs. So I did want to pursue country. But then I went to college and I was about like 16, so that's when I discovered like grunge.
Mm.
And then I started making like demos, like spoken word demos actually, um, with music on SoundCloud. And I would have like just random people who just message me and say, "Oh, do you want to collab on a song or do you want to collab on this?" So it was kind of weird how it started because I just collaborated like with random people, like other musicians. Some of this stuff didn't even be released, but it was more of just the experience. But also, when I was about 16, I again did my research on like labels and management. Like I looked at my favorite bands and who they were signed to. And I remember like after when I would come home from like college or something, I would just cold call like a record label. Like I don't know, I called like loads of record labels and I just said like, can I send my demos? And they were either like, oh no, we don't accept, or yeah, sure, send it to this email. Like I honestly have always really wanted to pursue like a career in music. It just obviously when I started when I was really young, it's just like you sort of learning the ropes.
Yeah.
Whereas like a couple years go on, it's just like I think I can actually do something with this.
Yeah. And
Um,
what
yeah.
came from those emails and those phone calls to record labels? How did it go?
I mean, the major labels obviously not that great at the moment. Well, then, but I still like submitted like I remember I submitted a bunch of songs to a record label called Domino, who have the Arctic Monkeys on. And this was sort of a full circle moment. Last year, I played a show in New York. It was through John Cooper Clarke because we had the same manager, and that's another story. But um, because John Cooper Clarke, he's mates with Alex Turner. So we all went to their show because they were playing a show in New York. And we went to like the after party, which was really just very surreal. And I met like the head of Domino, which is like I sent you demos when I was like 16.
Wow.
And here we are, like obviously it's under 10 years later. Um, yeah, but I mean, at the time, obviously, not a lot came from
Yeah.
calling these like record labels because again, I didn't have much of like a social media presence. It was really just like me writing songs, recording these demos, and just sending them out to people. I guess probably just, to get my name out there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we've had the pleasure of having Dr. John Cooper Clarke on the podcast before and having a good chat on him. It's a number
Oh,
one
yeah.
podcast. It was like the first one of the series of the podcast that we had on, and just I was quite. I can remember just being quite wary. He's this legend, and little old me does starting this podcast.
Yeah.
Bloody Cooper Clarke on the podcast, and he was such.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about shrubbery for a bit. He'd just been it would just, you just straight away, just down to earth. It
Oh, yeah.
relaxed me kind of way because I'm just shitting myself a little bit, thinking, Jesus, how's this gonna go, type thing. And it was just
Yeah.
a nice hour chat with him, just just hearing his stories and his poems and his art, and just how much a funny bloke he is.
He's just like he's so like what you see is what you get. Like he's very like, say it as it is,
Mm.
down to earth. And even like when I see him, he's always like, "Oh, hi Freya, how are you?" Da da da. And usually my sister, uh, Chloe, is with me, and he always remembers her. He's a really nice guy. Like the things he comes out with is quite funny. But yeah.
Even just seeing him on that telly program, that would I lie to you? And he had this story about a monkey, and it was just like
Yeah,
you can't tell if it's real or not because he's just got that. He could just tell you anything, couldn't
I
he?
know.
Like,
Yeah.
totally believable, totally believable. So how did the relationship with it start? And you mentioned you got the same manager. Was that just how did the relationship with the doctor start?
So it's quite like a mad story, really. So I was in my third year of university doing my dissertation, and I was doing it on how punk poetry influences modern day music. So obviously, I I like tied John Cooper Clarke with the Arctic Monkeys and I Want to Be Yours and all that. And I was chatting to my like artist mentor at the uni, and he was said, "Oh, why don't you try and get an interview with him?" And I was like, "It's not a bad shout. Let's
Yeah.
let's try." So I obviously found his management emailed them, uh, and attended three or four of his shows trying to get an interview with him. And it was me and my sister. We ended up at his show in Salisbury. It was really random. Great show, obviously, but I had the interview and I was chatting to John, and my sister was chatting to his manager, and his manager says to my sister, "Oh, does Freya have any music online that I can listen to?" So my sister, being a good sister, she shows him my music, what I've got, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I quite like this." So, and then like a couple weeks later, I get an email from him obviously being like, oh, he's taken an interest in my music, and then puts me in a studio in Manchester to record three or four songs, one being Dear Sweet Rosie. I record that with a producer called Dave Fiddler, who's really good. He's also a musician. Um, and then Phil's in Manchester, and obviously I'm in Dorset, and I was playing shows in London, and Phil invited one of his mates called John Bryce to one of my London shows, and they ended up co-managing me. They obviously still co-manage me. Um, so yeah, it was really random how it came about, but again, it's sort of like unexpected. It's sort of crazy how that happened, you know? Like even though at 16 I was there like cold calling, like record labels and all that. Whereas it was honestly that dissertation, which I'm not a big essay writer, so I didn't have a great time writing it, but the interview, like again, like helped my dissertation, but helped my career
Yeah.
in music as well. So it's really crazy. Just like I owe a lot to like John and Phil. They've been so supportive, and like, they're still here supporting me and helping me and pushing me to do interviews with yourself and like other opportunities. Same with like doing spoken word
Mm.
with John Cooper Clarke. Um, so yeah, that's how I met John.
Me personally, I came from Sheffield originally, and I moved to Manchester, and I didn't know anything about what kind of just it just wasn't in my remit, spoken word. And as soon as I moved to Manchester, there's just loads of it about Leon the Pig Farmer is one of my favorites, and he's a friend now.
Oh, right,
Obviously,
yeah.
John Cooper Clarke, these big influences on. There were because when I first, excuse me, when I first came to Manchester, there were a lot of gigs that had spoken word artists in between bands and that kind of stuff, which was completely new to me.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's how I was introduced to that genre, and just being part of and just seeing it for the first time, even in my forties, as I just wasn't aware of that kind of stuff before, and I just
Yeah.
out, and it was just amazing to see these different artistic things that happen in between gigs as well. It's a fascinating little niche uh, genre, isn't it? Really, and
Yeah.
it's quite smaller. I imagine that everybody knows each other in that type of. Um,
Yeah, I imagine so. I'm obviously still quite new to
hmm,
I want to say the pond of spoken word, but
yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think everyone, near enough
Well, I
familiar with each other.
just hang around John Cooper Clarke for a little bit. I went to see the Arctic Monkeys in Sheffield, and he supported them. He was on before the gig.
Oh,
I just saw
right,
little
yeah.
John in the distance there, telling us how things are, just
Yeah.
in a big arena setting, and he's doing arena gigs, and you're joining too, aren't you? So
Yeah.
tell us about that. That sounds exciting.
So next year, John's playing a few shows around the UK, uh, London, the London Palladium. I'm supporting him there. In Nottingham, I forgot the venue, but it's like a theatre hall. Um, And also he's doing Manchester Co-op Live, which is the big one, the arena.
Yeah,
It's
mental.
going to be great, but it's going to be interesting how poetry translates in that like capacity, don't you think? Like I get like a theater, like it's more intimate, but what is it? I don't even know, 23,000, 23,500. Like it's really exciting. I'm really looking
I've
forward
been
to
once.
it.
I went to see Smashing Pumpkins there, and it was just like, this is a nice arena. But
Oh
you're
yeah.
right. You're just having like, and it kind of happened with comedy a lot, and a lot of comedians have started to do it.
Yeah.
It's just one person on stage. How is it gonna be for the audience to be that far away, just seeing one person talk? So
Yeah.
I presume the big tellies help with all that kind of stuff, really. And you've got plenty
Oh
of things
yeah.
to talk about then.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what exactly are you doing as a support? Is it singing or spoken word? What are you planning on doing?
So I'm doing spoken word. This is like another side of Freya beer,
Yeah.
like which is great because it's only recently I've been able to do it through like on a obviously my management, but I've always wanted to tie in my poetry with my music. So again, it's sort of crazy how everything's sort of coming into place or falling into place now.
Mm.
Where like the beginning of this year, I supported John at the London Palladium, and again, that was incredible. That was an amazing experience. Um, Quite nerve-wracking, obviously, because it's weird because as a band, you're so used to having people, but obviously behind you and like looking around and seeing them. Whereas when it's just you on stage with your book, it's quite scary. But
Yeah.
it's like anything, the more you do it, I've noticed the more I get used to it. Um, but yeah, like you can't not do it,
So
no matter how
how was the
scary.
Palladium then for you? So a legendary venue like the London Palladium. I can imagine that just being exciting, daunting, all the different emotions all at the same time. How did you adapt to that stage?
So, so for the London Palladium, so I had like everyone, I had my family there. And before the show, like they were saying, they were obviously saying this after I performed, but they were really nervous for me. And they're like, weren't you nervous? Did it do it? But in my head, I've sort of trained myself to like not overthink it, but also think, this is a job. I go on, I
Yeah,
present. It's like presenting a presentation at work. It's scary.
yeah,
Or at school even, those were scary. Um, so yeah, I walked on, I performed. All I want is like my performance to go like smoothly. I don't want to, like mess up my words. That's all I cared about in that moment, and I was absolutely fine. It was only when I came off the stage, that's when it hits you. And
yeah.
that's like when I just feel really overwhelmed because it's for me, that was huge, like performing at the Palladium, let alone like, supporting one of my inspirations as well. It was a lot of like feelings after the show. And after me was Linton Kwesi Johnson, who is huge, obviously, in the poetry world. So all these people around me and all this support as well. It was very overwhelming, but it was great. It was an incredible sort of experience.
How was it such a big high like that? How was it? How was the come down to that kind of stuff?
Um,
Mentally, I suppose, then just the next day you just around the supermarket or whatever you're doing, it's just,
yeah,
in the real world again, how
yeah.
deal with that mentally, the ups and the downs of just life and having these experiences.
Um, it wasn't too bad with the Palladium because the next day I think I just went back to work
Mm.
because I work from home. Um, so again, I just get on with it. But
Yeah,
with the tour, for example, like the last tour we had, obviously, like I said earlier, it was literally constant. After that, like you do have a moment where you just like you want to keep doing something, and it's just weird just to sit still because I love being busy, but I can't not be busy. I always have to find something to do. But with like something like a tour, because there's so much going on. Like, yeah, there's the performance, which is the main event, but there's so much before the performance, like the preparation and like the traveling and the adjusting to like the environment and like sound check and everything. Like there's something constantly happening, like you're constantly looking at the clock.
Yeah.
So when you come back from that and back to real life, um, yeah, that takes time to adjust, but it'll happen again. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I do see a lot of bands out there touring, not doing as many dates as what they used to. I think there was something on news about it. I think it's just economically, it's really difficult for a
All
to do
right.
a large tour. But looking at your tour dates, that's a massive one, isn't it? That you're halfway through at the minute.
Yeah.
You're not messing about, are you? You
No.
it just looks at it. So it started on the 5th of October in Woking, and you're going all the way to Bristol on the 28th of November. Halfway through it now. How has it been? How's this tour been for you in general?
Yeah, it's been really good. Like, because we've been going to like smaller towns. For
Mm.
example, we went to a place called Dill, which is near Kent, which before I never heard of the place. No offense to them. But no, it was great to go to these cities and towns and it's just interesting to sort of see the environment and also meet new people and people who are like truly like fans of your music. It's really nice. It's very what's the word? Heartwarming. Yeah.
So you're back on tour again in a bit. You're in the north a lot as well. Traveling out
Yeah.
in the north. How do you find northern audiences compared to southern audiences? Is there a difference these days? I'm fishing for something that might not be there.
No, there is a difference.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, Northern, I think just Northerners are way more friendlier than
Yes.
Southerners. Not in a horrible way. Like you get nice Southerners.
Yeah.
But I've noticed like the audience wise, like Northern dates, they're way more like interactive. Way more like welcoming,
Hmm.
which is nice. But either way, like it doesn't really matter like how the audience reacts because like you're there to play, they're paying to see you, you do your thing, whatever. But yeah, with Northern dates, it's definitely a warmer experience, ironically, because it's colder up there. But for example, London's usually a tougher crowd because everyone's sort of just there
Yeah.
watching you. Whereas like Northern, they're like wooing or like, like whatever. um, so yeah, there is definitely a difference, but
So the northern audience is better then, basically. Is that what we say?
um, that's
Oh,
open to interpretation.
yes, I'm joking. Yeah, so it's this time of year. The nights are drawing in. It's a big tour time in the diary for artists, and we've just finished the festival seasons. How do you get on with the festival announcements and that kind of stuff? How do you as an artist how are you feeling breaking into festivals and that side of the that part of the year where it's different to like now where it's like business,
Yeah.
let's get on tour type thing. How do you get on with that?
Every year, like something like a big festival comes up, which is really exciting. Like for example, a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to play at the Isle of Wight festival, which was amazing. Last year, I played Latitude Festival. This year, I played Why Not Festival. Um, Still waiting for Glastonbury.
Yes.
I feel like that's obviously the
Yeah.
biggest one, but I'm sure it'll come around.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like festivals, there's always something uh which comes up, like an opportunity to be involved, whether it's even just a small festival. Like in a couple of years ago, I played a festival called Rhythm Tree on the Isle of Wight, which is more of like a folky festival. But that was really nice because again, it's a different type of crowd. It's more of like a family orientated crowd, whereas say, I guess the Isle of Wight is more, it's a mix because obviously you get really young people, like older people, like families. But no, it's interesting, like what comes up every year.
So you've been through the festival season. You've got this big long tour that you're halfway through now. Does it start? Is it starting to feel like it's happening now? Does it feel different
Oh,
now to like a couple of years ago? or just even last year?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like every year I feel like I'm evolving. And like I said, like every year I always get some crazy opportunity to do something, whether that's like with spoken word or even just festivals or music. Um, but no, I feel like my name has gotten around quite a bit now.
Mm.
So I'm a known entity. Whereas when I first toured a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, um, that was the tour. It's just like you're trying to build your path. Whereas now, like people are like, oh, Freya Beer,
Yeah.
which is good. um, but yeah, so
Yeah. Brilliant.
it's building.
So just looking at this amazing tour, I'll put it within the description of this podcast. I'll put a link to the people to visit, and so they can catch you on the last leg of your tour as well. And
Yeah,
you've got
great.
the music
Thank
out as
you.
well, new single "False Hope." Tell us a little bit about that as well.
So False Hope is my latest single. I recorded it with a producer called Tom Donovan. He produced my previous single, Tatiana, as well. The past two singles are definitely more pop, which I really like.
Hmm.
They feel more like what's the word? I want to say an anthem. I don't know if that's the correct word for it, but they just feel a lot stronger. They feel like way bigger, like the wall of sound is more just bigger and stronger. But yeah, Tom Donovan recorded it in Colchester. Um, he's worked with Miles Kane, which is cool. We recorded the music video in Sussex, or no, Hove, on the beach. It was like early morning. It was boiling hot, surprisingly. Um, but yeah, I sort of the music video is more sort of like a washed up mermaid vibe. Um,
I'm glad you described it
but
as
yeah,
poppy there earlier, because I got when I mentioned pop and your image earlier, I got the vibe that I was going down the wrong track a little bit there.
oh right.
Like music and that kind of stuff. So I'm glad you described it before that, because they're the last couple of singles that I listened to before we spoke today. So I'm relieved with myself. I wasn't completely being stupid.
No, no, we're on the same page.
So if people are hovering over the link within the description of this podcast or on YouTube, wherever you're listening or watching this, what would you
Yeah.
say to the people that are hovering over that link that are thinking about buying a gig for Freya Beer on this tour? What would you say to those people?
What would I say to them? I would say you don't want to miss it.
Yeah,
Um,
just press it.
yeah, just please just press it.
Just press it.
It will
Brilliant.
help so much.
Well, Freya, it's been lovely to have a chat with you today and just get to know you a little bit more. We've supported you on through the earlier years at RGM.
Yes,
We'll get
thank
more
you.
people at shows coming up as well, just sharing that Freya beer name. And we really appreciate your time and wish you all the best for the second leg of your tour, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for
Brilliant.
having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my little studio. We're just having a look around. This is where I record loads of good chats. And you know that already because you've just finished one. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed it, have a look around. Look at this. There's different videos all around here. New videos that you can enjoy too. I promise you it'll be all right. Nice one. Thanks for tuning in again, guys. See you soon.